Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a pretty provocative analysis of America's class system. The whole argument is that if you really want to understand the country, you have to look at who holds the power, who's just trying to get by, and where the real fault lines are. So, the analysis kicks right off with this really powerful question from nearly a century ago. It's a way to just cut through all the political noise and ask something way more fundamental. In any society, who's really on your side and who isn't? And that's exactly what our source material does. It takes this lens and points it directly at modern America. The argument is that the real story isn't just about Democrats and Republicans, it's about these deep, fundamental class divisions. To build its case, the report pulls from three really different sources. It uses Mao's method for analyzing class, combines it with Wang Huning's critique of American society, and then throws in some super modern, on-the-ground terms from a commentator known as Squid King. Okay, so the report starts its deep dive right at the very top of the American social pyramid, with a group it calls the Monopolistic Oligarchy. So what makes this group tick? Well, it's not just about being rich. The report argues it's about the complete fusion of money and power. It's a permanent establishment where Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and Washington, D.C. are all playing for the same team, protecting the same interests no matter who's supposedly in charge. And here's how they keep that power. The point here is the political influence isn't just about your vote anymore. It's a luxury good that you can buy. I mean, when elections cost almost $16 billion, only a tiny, tiny group of people can afford a real seat at that table. And this is the economic engine that's driving all of that. I mean, just look at this data from the Federal Reserve. It's stunning. The top 1% of the country holds over 30% of all the wealth. And to really put that into perspective, the entire bottom half of the population, all of them combined, they hold just 2.5%. And you know, this didn't just happen overnight. This has been getting more and more extreme for decades. Since 1989, the wealthiest 1% have seen their share of the pie grow by more than a third. And at the exact same time, the bottom 50% have watched their tiny slice get even smaller. So, okay, that's the view from the top. What about for pretty much everyone else? The report argues that for the huge majority of Americans, life is defined by a constant, very specific kind of threat. The report has this really potent name for it, the execution line. And you should think of it like a financial tripwire. It's not just about being poor. It's about being one bad day, one unexpected medical bill, one car repair, away from having your entire life just completely unravel. So just how many people are we talking about here? Well, this statistic from the Federal Reserve kind of says it all. If over a third of the entire country can't come up with $400 for an emergency, it means they are living permanently on that knife's edge. And the thing is, this fragility isn't an accident. The analysis says it's built right into the system. It's held up by these pillars: crushing medical debt, wages so low that working full-time still isn't enough, and inflation that just keeps eating away at whatever little savings people have. All right, next the report goes to the very bottom of the social structure. And here it argues what it even means to be exploited, well, that changes completely. So the analysis introduces this really shocking term, the biological proletariat. The idea is that for this class of people, it's not about selling your labor anymore, it's about selling your physical body, your biological material, as a raw commodity. A perfect example of this is the commercial plasma industry. The report frames this not as a noble donation, but as a raw survival strategy where the poorest Americans are basically forced to liquidate their own life force to pay the bills, fueling a massive global market. And the analysis makes it very clear that this status is heavily racialized. It points to data like the maternal mortality rate, where the disparity is so enormous. It suggests that Black women are treated as structurally expendable by the very system that profits from all this. And at the absolute bottom, you find the dispossessed class. Their condition is captured by this bleak, powerful metaphor of the Seattle rainy night. This feeling of cold, total abandonment, right in the heart of unimaginable wealth. And this is not some small, fringe issue. The report highlights that the scale of this crisis, with over 650,000 people experiencing homelessness, has hit historic highs. This makes it a structural feature of the system, not a bug. Okay, so finally, the report ties this entire class structure together into one single, really powerful metaphor that it says defines the American landscape today. It's this idea of a heaven-hell dividing line, and it describes both a literal and a figurative wall. The argument is that American society is now split into two completely different realities that are often just a few feet apart, but are worlds away in terms of experience. And the report argues this divide pops up in every single metric that matters. On one side of this line, your assets grow while you sleep. On the other side, you sell your own plasma to get by. It's a difference you can measure in years of life expectancy, in your physical safety, in basic human dignity. So, to bring it all back to that opening question, how does the report answer it? It concludes that in this new American landscape, the monopolistic oligarchy is the fundamental enemy. The old middle class is this nervous, undecided ally, and that massive class of people living on the execution line is the only force with the potential to really demand change. The final, stark conclusion from this analysis is that the classic American dream of social mobility, it's collapsed. The new reality, it argues, is a wall. And the central conflict of our time is the battle between the limitless wealth on one side of that wall and the growing desperation on the other. And all this leaves us with one final, pretty unsettling question. If this class division really is the primary conflict of our time, what happens when a society's foundational promise, the very thing that's supposed to hold it together, just dissolves?